to My Turn Podcast, a gaming podcast hosted by extra competitive siblings. Expect news, reviews, laughs and arguments as we take on games across all genres and platforms. I'm Jem, and today I'm joined by my honorary sibling, bestie, awesome dude and all-round legend, Tim!
Hello, my dear! How are you?
I liked your little Mrs. Doubtfire moment then.
It was. I didn't know that's where I was going before I started, but it just emerged.
Hello, dear!
How are you?
I'm alright, mate. Yeah, I'm not too bad. I've just been on a kind of honeymoon staycation. I got married.
Yeah.
So you were there.
Did you?
Yeah, you were. I mean, you were there. You were a fundamental part of the occasion. I didn't marry you.
I remember it now. It was that thing at that place.
It was that,
and you did the thing, and there was stuff. Yeah, I remember.
Said the I do's. Yeah, you made a speech and thoroughly roasted me. It was great. Yes, I've just been at home because we still can't really go anywhere. But it's been nice to just have an excuse to sit in my pants and play computer games with my new spouse.
Yeah, I guess that's what spouses do these days. What else can you do? That's it. Still the same. Good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah, and how are you, Tim? Since I saw you at the wedding last when you were very drunk, as was I, though. To be fair.
Merry times. Well, it was all very free flowing. I'm well. I actually got pinged on Monday, which is not
Everyone's
as exciting as it sounds. Right? You want it to be all the grand reopening, and the app went, you gotta self-isolate for 3 days. So today I gagged on a lateral flow, and it told me I was okay. Said you don't got nothing. I've been double vaxxed. I only went to the co-op. So, pretty sure it's okay, but they're getting quite sensitive, these apps.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
As a result of which, I am still at home playing games.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you've been told you have to stay indoors, and like here in the UK at the moment, the weather, although it's summer, the weather hasn't been great, so you kind of don't mind as much.
Sure. Sure.
We tried to go to the seaside last week and it just rained on us all day. So.
Oh, well, my dear, this is going to feed very well into my introduction of what I'm talking about. So What I was going to say is now we're all supposedly allowed out and it's the summer. You can picture yourself going to the beach on a lovely sunny day with an ice cream in hand, Mr. Whippy, and paddling in the sea and just enjoying all the atmosphere. Of course, I can't do that. So instead, I've got an ice cream pale ale beer that I'm drinking, which is a delicious substitute for an ice cream. And instead of being at the beach and dipping my toes in the water, I have been playing as a man-eating shark who is taking advantage of those toes and chomping down on them and eating all the people, because that, to me, is the better substitute for being at the beach. It's pretending to be a shark eating all those people. That's what I'm going to talk about today.
I mean, that got dark quite quickly. So
it's been a long time.
Yeah. But I've also gone for a sea-themed game called Call of the Sea, the game I'm going to review. What's the game you're going to review called, Tim?
It's called Maneater.
Apt. Not Toe Eater, though. Not Toe Eater.
No. Only men as well.
Right. Oh, I'm safe then. I'm good.
You're fine.
So we've both gone for sort of sea-themed game. We're both doing computer games today. So why don't you kick us off, Tim? Why don't we get straight into those troubled waters? So tell us about Manhunter in a nutshell.
Tell you what I'll do. I'll tell you about Maneater.
Oh yeah, whoops. I forgot already.
Yours is even darker, Manhunter.
Manhunter.
That's Hannibal Lecter. Okay,
True.
so Maneater is an action role-playing game. It's developed and published by Tripwire Interactive, who are a US-based company. It was released on Windows and PlayStation 4 and Xbox One in May of 2020, and then, of course, when the new gen consoles for Xbox and PlayStations emerged in November 2020, it was available there. And then just recently, May of this year, it was released for Nintendo Switch. In a nutshell, what it is you become, as I've already explained, a shark who must evolve and survive in this open world setting so that you can take revenge on a fish. I should say that better. You can take revenge on a fisherman who disfigured her as a pup and killed her mother. Yes, it's a story of fishy revenge.
Wow. So what were your expectations going into such a game, Tim?
Two main expectations. One, chomp chomp munch munch. Two, that I would, for several days, have Hall and Oates and or Nelly Furtado stuck in my head. Both of those things came to pass.
Specifically, which ones?
Maneater.
Oh, yeah.
You know, whoa, here she comes. Look out, boy, she'll chew you up. That one. Or, she's a man-eater, make you work hard, make you sweat. That one. So those two were stuck in my head the entire time I was playing the game. But the other expectation of Chomp Chomp Munch Munch did come to pass, you'll be pleased to hear.
Very nice, very nice. So when you started playing this game, I mean, you said you evolve? I mean, this is some fast evolution, right? Because sharks have been around a long time. So talk to us about the gameplay as you started getting into it. How does it work? How does it function?
Yeah, so your introduction to it, you are actually playing an already evolved near Mega Shark, but you very quickly encounter your arch nemesis, Scaly Pete. Who's
that his name?
Is his name, Scaly Pete. And he has a boat called the Cajun Queen. And he is sort of the main figure in a reality show called Maneaters versus Shark Hunters, which is, you know, very much like sort of Deadliest Catch territory.
Right.
And he catches you and you get killed. And you're like, oh, well, that was a pretty short game right there. But as Scaly Pete slices you open...
Oh, no.
He discovers that there's a pup inside. And he decides that he's going to mark the pup, like scar it, but then throw it back in the water to get revenge later. Because the shark that you start out as is actually the shark that killed his father. He recognises because it had a harpoon stuck in it. You start with a harpoon. So it's a multi-generational revenge saga between shark hunters and man-eaters. And that's where you start in this kind of like revenge saga legacy. So of course you start the game for real as this pup. And you evolve by eating everything around you. Gaining nutrients, you know, and being able to grow as a shark. You are a bull shark, I should tell you. Bull sharks are notorious for eating anything. They will eat anything, including each other. It's one of the main reasons why you might think, wait, shouldn't I be playing as a great white? Because, you know, famously, Jaws, great white, and you're getting a lot of Jaws vibes from this game. Picky. But it makes more sense because great whites, mostly oceanic, less attacky, actually. Bull sharks can actually go into freshwater because they have special glands which hold onto the salt. And they're coastal sharks. So they're much more likely to be in touch with humans regardless of like how aggressive they are anyway. So it makes much more sense for you to be a bull shark. But that's the basis on which you eat everything and you start growing and growing and evolving. There are more complex ways in which you evolve as well, though. Because as you cause havoc... around the bays and the coastlines and the rivers of the environment you're in, you will gain a sort of notoriety ranking. And as you go up, you have to encounter a boss at each level. And these bosses get kind of like little sassy introductions, and they'll come and hunt you down on their little skipper boat. And once you take them out, you get a special upgrade. So you might end up with like extra bone-plated fins or electric teeth or something, which can help you progress amongst the more difficult opponents.
Wait. This sounded like a little bit of a enhanced reality, and then you said electric teeth. What?
Yeah.
So this goes into fantasy pretty quickly, right?
Oh, I mean, absolutely. So there are bits that are more realistic, like kind of slowly creeping out of the shadows to find your prey. It's one of the things, actually, that on rewatching Jaws, as a result of playing this game, I was like, what's really great about Jaws is the shark never moves too fast. Even when it jumps out, it's still at a steady speed, and you're like, I'm buying that. So you don't go too fast as this shark. Yep. It's a steady creep, speed. And I enjoyed that. But where it gets really silly is you have challenges where not only do you have to eat, swordfish and other sharks and stuff, but you have to eat people, obviously, otherwise it wouldn't be fun. And sometimes you've got the one that was zooming past on a jet ski, you've got the straggling swimmer, but at some point you need to just go a little bit further on to the land to finish off your tally. And you can get the sort of amphibious upgrade, which allows you to stay out of the water for a bit longer. And you end up just sort of flopping along the beach, like chasing these people running away from you.
So
it's by far the best
bit
of the
lion.
Game. Yeah. You're sort of half shark, half sea lion. And that bit's good fun.
Amazing, that's so funny. I was going to say as well, like, when it even cuts you out of... When Scaly Pete cuts you out of your mum's tummy, do sharks come out live? Are they not eggs?
They are. They are indeed eggs.
Yeah. Okay.
Yep.
That's what I was a bit like. Question. Okay.
Yes.
Live young, I shall brand you. Look. Through your egg.
I know the premise of this is that it's a documentary, but it ain't.
Okay. I know, really, I just was like...
It's really not.
But, all right.
For example, one of the gameplay elements is, as long as... in addition to kind of going around, eating creatures and attacking people, there's obviously collectibles. And one of the main things of the collectibles is going around collecting license plates, which is a Jaws reference.
It's a Jaws
when they
reference,
dissect the tiger shark that they misidentify as the Maneater at the beginning of the film, and they get a license plate out of it. So there's license plates everywhere for you to go around and chomp down on, which is quite fun. But some of them are like placed on highway bridges above rivers, and you have to jump about 50 feet in the air to go and chomp it. So there's lots of like little ridiculous bits as well. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
I love it.
No dolphins in this
so
game,
fun.
though, for some reason.
What?
It's really silly. So here's the thing. It's very tongue-in-cheek. The whole style of it is very silly. It's fun to play for a short amount of time. But the gameplay, very repetitive. Because my expectation of Chomp, Chomp, Munch, Munch pretty much sums up the entire game.
Okay.
It's here's a powerful enemy. Go chomp, chomp, munch, munch on it. That will upgrade you to make you a bit hardier and a bit chompier. So now you can go and chomp someone else. But it means that essentially it's kind of always the same. Right. And even though you have 10 different bosses to go through before you finally get to encounter Scaly Pete again, they're indistinguishable from any other kind of hunters on the boats. Really, a couple of times I defeated them without even realising I had. I was like, oh, I've got an upgrade and I hadn't noticed I'd killed that boss, which is never a great sign of your boss design, is it?
Yeah. So as you've touched on the slightly more negative aspects of the game, is there anything else that for you was sort of not great about the game?
You know, it's just the gameplay, which, you know, it's just a thing, but it's also a big thing. It doesn't lend itself well to being played for a long period of time or repeatedly. Fortunately, that's not what it's asking of you. It is a short game.
Yeah, how long did it take you to beat?
Maybe I spent about 10 hours on it. It's the kind. I think I played like half an hour a day for maybe 2 weeks.
Okay.
Something along those lines, and that was a nice, pleasing little distraction.
So something you could dip in and out of.
Mm-hmm. No, dip into the cool waters. And then jump up thrashing and biting someone's limb off. It's that kind of game, yeah, absolutely. It's really just that the gameplay wasn't complex enough to keep you interested in that. your interest is entirely on the fun of it. So you obviously have to be sadistic enough to find it funny to go around terrorizing people on beach. Technical difficulties, evil robots fuck you in the ear. Technical difficulties.
So we had a slight technical difficulty, but we are back. And Tim, tell us a little bit about some of the positives of this Chomp Chomp Munch Munch game.
Yeah, so another one of the things I really enjoyed that added to the legitimacy of the silliness is that the narrator of the Maneaters versus Shark Hunters, which narrates your game experience every time you sort of do something or go into a new area. There's a silly made-up commentary, but it's voiced by Chris Parnell, who you may know from Archer or Rick and Morty. So they got kind of like a good voice choice to let you know what kind of game you're getting into. So I thought that was a really good thing. I think another thing is if you're into it, there is a sort of environmental message type thing going on to it, because as you swim around the seas, you know, initially you're thinking, oh, I bet this will be really pretty. But so much of, as you get particularly towards the coast, it's just trash. And initially, kind of some of the references there are quite funny. There's lots of film references. For instance, when you go down into a sewer, you kind of turn a corner and then you get Pennywise the clown waiting for you.
Oh,
There's all
nice.
sorts of yeah. There's all sorts of fun film references that go in there. But the more you go on, the more kind of examples you get of like toxic pollution in the coastal waters and so forth. And actually for bull sharks, that's a real thing, because they are coastal sharks. They're the most susceptible to habitat change and pollution and that sort of stuff. So if you want to go that far into it, it's there. There's something kind of worthy to it in amongst all the silliness as well. But what I will say, the ocean creatures are actually done, you know, quite nicely. It is calming if you want to just swim around slowly and watch things move around. There is a sort of calming element to that, and then when you hit the surface, you feel like you're going faster, and it's lots of human noise and kind of neon lights and bridges and stuff. So it's kind of, they've got a good contrast between being above and below the water. So I liked that aspect of the art as well.
That's cool. So when you flop about on the beach, you can actually enjoy some of the cityscapes and stuff.
Yeah, and it varies. You've got, I think, about 8 different environments. So some of it is a bit swampier, and you will encounter alligators. And then there's a bit that's a bit more of a city, and actually one of your main kind of apex predators that you have to take on in order to evolve is an orca that has been sort of trapped in a SeaWorld environment, and that was definitely a difficult fight. And then you can go a little bit further out to sea and even discover sperm whale.
Oh, wow. Okay, yeah. So I was going to say, because it is the initial story is a little bit Moby Dick, isn't it? This kind of generational vendetta.
Yes,
Generation-long vendetta is what I should say.
Yeah, it absolutely is. Yeah, the story is very Moby Dick via way of Jaws. And the family drama gets even more intense as it goes on. So I quite liked the way they framed this in the filming of the reality show. Scaly Pete gets more and more obsessed with you, so kind of in the Moby Dick style. He takes his son Kyle along with him, and let's just say it doesn't go well for Kyle. I made sure of that. But Scaly Pete, you know, has already had his arm bitten off by you when you were a pup, and then later on he gets his leg bitten off by you, and the crew are getting increasingly concerned about Scaly Pete's obsession with wanting to blow you up. And by the time he's got very few limbs left...
Is he throwing dynamite in the water a la Jaws?
Yep. There are bombs being thrown into the water. There's all sorts of special protections coming in at the end. What I will say is that the finale is explosive, but I won't tell you who comes out on top.
Oh, okay, very nice. So some of the baddies or your enemies are also other aquatic creatures, right? So like the orca, for example, because initially I thought it was just you against the humans.
Yeah, no, there's as you go through the different zones, you get increasing sizes and difficulty of aquatic predators.
Yeah.
And in each zone, there's an apex version of that, which you have to take on in order to be able to evolve further. So it starts from things like barracudas, works up through swordfish, maki, and then great white, and then orca, and then sperm whale. I think more or less is the order of it. I'll tell you what, though, what's annoying is even when you do eventually evolve into the mega shark, and you are pretty much unbeatable, you would hope the real lower level things don't keep attacking you, like they'd have some sort of sense of their own mortality. But no, even when I was like the most powerful mega shark, you're still kind of wandering through somewhere and a little stupid barracuda will come up and bite you. It's just annoying.
Yeah, that is annoying and also even more stupid. But then you did say it is a silly game, so you know they got to keep the low level baddies coming, I guess. And is the combat sort of challenging enough?
No. In a word. So in terms of combat, you can chomp. You can bite down on them. You can do it repeatedly, and some of the kind of evolution buffs you get mean that it has sort of increased damage, like shock damage if you've got electric teeth, for example. There's another one where you can bite down on them and then shake from side to side. So you're sort of thrashing. You can also whip your tail. Whip your tail back and forth. And
whip your tail back and forth.
Kind of things out, which is useful if you've... Yeah, exactly. If you've dodged a powerful enemy, it's a good idea to whip your tail and then turn around and bite him in the butt. Not that fish really have kind of butts to bite, but you know what I mean. The fish butt.
The end of the fish. The end part. Top of the tail. Top of the tail.
Sure, exactly.
Nice. So is there anything else of note that you would like to mention about the game?
All I'm going to say is that on average, there are 4 unprovoked fatalities a year from shark attacks, whereas 20 million sharks are killed through fishing. So this is just me getting a bit of revenge on behalf of the sharks. Don't feel bad about taking down the humans, because it doesn't really happen that much in real life, so go for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you got that conservation edge in there, Tim, in the end. Great. So who would you recommend this game to?
I think it's a bit of casual fun, particularly in the summer, you know, now when you maybe don't want to be doing 4 hours on end, or between big games, which is why I picked it up. Or if you've just watched Jaws or any various shark movie of that ilk and you want to see it from the perspective of the shark instead.
Yeah, it's funny you say that because I also just watched Jaws this week. I think it just popped up, didn't it, on Netflix, I want to say. But
yes.
Yeah, we also rewatched it this week, so it was quite funny when you said you were playing a shark game. I was like, I just rewatched Jaws. It's great.
Yeah,
Stands up.
It was fun going to kind of... It's still such a great film, particularly the special effects. The special effects are still really good. A couple of things I'd forgotten that made me laugh in that film. One is when Brody just pours himself a pint of wine. Particularly enjoyed and related to that moment. The other thing, actually, which made me chuckle is just before Jaws actually attacks the boat that they're on, and they start flooding, they're all drunk and singing "Show Me the Way to Go Home."
Yeah, which is your podcast song.
Yeah, the theme tune to my podcast for Thinking Drinking, and I was like, oh yeah, that feels familiar.
So if you've just rewatched Jaws and you want to hear that again, listen to Tim's other podcast, Thinking Drinking. Yeah, I noticed that as well, and I was like, why do I know this song? Oh, it's from Thinking Drinking. It's so funny. But yeah, I highly recommend rewatching Jaws because I think I haven't watched it for so long. I remembered that I liked it, but I didn't remember how good it was as a film. Yeah, I absolutely loved it. But I think that brings us on nicely to your rating of Maneater.
Well, look, if it wasn't so much fun and I wasn't such a sadist, it would be a lower score. So beware of that. But I'm going to give it a 7 out of 10 because I had a great time.
Wow. Okay. All right. Yeah, and with a nice recommendation of what you're getting in for. And it is currently on Xbox Game Pass as well. So I guess if you've got that, you might as well have a little dip in. Again.
Yes.
No pun intended.
Yeah, exactly. That's where I played it. Game Pass on the Xbox Series X. So Jem, is it time to hear from you? What are you going to be talking about?
I'm going to be talking about a game called Call of the Sea, which I also played on Xbox Series X because it is also popped up on the Game Pass. So that's what I'm talking about.
All right, so give it to me in a nutshell.
Right, well, Call of the Sea is an adventure, puzzle adventure game, first person as well, and it's set in the 1930s, and you play this kind of quintessential 1930s explorer lady called Nora, and you go off to a Pacific island in search of your lost husband, but you also have a sickness that's unexplained, and that's the reason your husband disappeared, because he's gone off in search of a cure for your unexplained sickness. And then you get to this island and it's full of mystery and puzzles, and the game progresses through that. The game was developed by Out of the Blue Games and published by Raw Fury. It's available on pretty much all the platforms, Windows, PlayStation, Xbox. I don't think that it's on mobile, but it would play quite nicely on mobile, so if they port it, it'll be quite good. And it came out in 2010, I think, December, not 2010, 2020, I've forgotten what year it is, Tim. 2020, December 2020. And it came to PlayStation quite recently in May of this year. So we saw it on the Game Pass and thought, let's have a little go at this, because I love a puzzle adventure. It's one of my favourite game genres.
But Jem, should we be reading anything into the fact that you literally just got married and you're already playing a game about losing your husband?
No, I mean he suggested it, to be fair, and we played it together.
that's even worse. He's just trying to lay the groundwork.
It's funny actually, because we played this and then I immediately played Hellblade afterwards, and they're both kind of a leading female in search of, or in order, like, kind of rescuing their love. So the whole time I was like, I'd go searching for you across the seas, Alex. And he would just give me a weird side-eye glance and smirk at me. But I was getting romantic, basically, with the notion of, like, saving my love across mysterious seas in strange lands with lots and lots of puzzles.
Sure, heaving seas, heaving bosoms, we all love that. So what were your expectations for the game then?
So this game is sort of described as a Lovecraftian mystery. So you've got that expectation of it feeling a bit like a Lovecraft story, and it definitely really leans into this sort of 1930s style with the way it looks. So even from the poster art and stuff, you kind of feel like, okay, I know what I'm getting into, so I expected it to feel like one of those, Western people exploring strange, mysterious foreign islands with their journals and notebooks. That's kind of what my expectation was. And because I saw that it was a puzzle adventure game, I thought there'd be a lot of code breaking and unlocking things and uncovering mystery through solving different kinds of puzzles.
And is that what the gameplay came to be? Did your
basically.
Expectations come true in that?
Yeah. It almost goes ham with leaning into that sort of, I'm an adventurer called Nora and my husband Harry has gone missing, and she's got that weird sort of, I think they said she was from Boston, but she's got that weird sort of like a bit English, a bit American accent that all the old movies have. And she's like, Harry, where did you go, Harry? Why did you miss me? So it's all a bit like that. So it definitely is a mystery. The way that it looks is really pretty. It's quite kind of cartoony, but pretty cartoony, if that makes sense. The colours are super vibrant. And so it feels like it could be sort of, it's like a computer game, more vibrant version of like Disney's Tarzan a bit when you first start playing it.
Right, yeah, I got it.
But then when you get properly into the island and everything, it's much more beautiful and layered than that. But yeah, it does have this sort of cartoony feel to it, even though it's all really beautifully rendered.
Phil Collins there, or
no, sadly not. I mean, there's a bit of emotive music here and there, but his wily tones are not present. No.
Well, obviously losing a mark for that then.
Yeah.
So tell us about what you did like about the game.
So what I liked about the game were the puzzles. So as soon as you get to this island, which is the last known place that Harry, your husband, was, you start exploring things. It's quite nice being first person as well, because often with these kinds of games it ends up being more of a platformer, but it really immerses you into it. All you can see is your hands, because your hands are also the thing that's inflicted. So you wear gloves for most of the game, but you can see these kind of black marks on your hands, and this kind of feeds into the mystery. But the puzzles themselves were pretty satisfying. Some of them were quite hard, which I like because I love a puzzle. And I found them varied enough, and I really liked how they used this idea of technology without electricity. So there was a lot of unexplained power driving it, but in terms of the way they were designed aesthetically, there was a lot of kind of stones moving around in cogs, and light from the moon triggering things, and looking at the stars and using water. So in terms of the inventiveness of the puzzle design and how that fed into the aesthetics, I thought that was really nice and felt appropriate to the time period that it was set in.
Nice. And did you find that the satisfaction of the puzzles and the puzzles themselves fed well into the narrative? Like, did it push you along in the story as well? Because a lot of puzzle games, I find, although I enjoy it, can feel like, and now you're doing this now.
They felt quite well placed with the narrative. So the narrative sort of delivered to you in a bit of a strange way. So Nora talks to herself throughout the game. So she gives you her thoughts. But also she picks up clues when she lands on the island. So she'll pick up pictures, she'll pick up discarded maps, journal entries, pieces of apparatus that have been discarded, weapons, things like that. So she'll pick these things up and then she reflects on them either verbally, or she'll write something in her journal. And the journal is a pretty nice device to have in the game, to be fair. There's two sides to it. So one side is very much a journal, but it's a really nice way of recapping where you are in the story. So the story itself is just unravelling a mystery of where her husband's gone and the clues he's found about her illness. And then the other part of the journal is where she makes notes which relate to the puzzles that she's faced with. And almost all of the puzzles are about opening a door. So in that sense, they're quite repetitive, but in terms of the actual devices and the way that door will open, they're all very different. So it's always she gets to a point in the island and can't progress until she's opened something or revealed something. So in that sense, they are feeding into the story, because she's also opening and revealing things about herself and her illness, and also about her husband's aims, I guess, when he arrives at the island. So she starts to learn more about what he's actually trying to do and the lengths he's going to go to, and what happens with his party that he lands on this island with. So there's quite a lot of story in there. Yeah, and some of the puzzles, actually, you pick up things that they've started solving. So they might have half-finished notes about a contraption, and then you have to sort of finish the notes off yourself. So that's quite nice. That feels like quite a nice, interesting way to approach a puzzle.
Nice. And Is there some stuff that we're not going to be as into that we need to know about?
Yeah, I would say what is sort of charming about the game also becomes a bit annoying about, well, not annoying, that's not the right word, it just tires very quickly. So what's charming about the game when you first start is this kind of, yeah, as I say, this sort of setting, this sort of 1930s vibe, this sort of archetypal adventurous. After a while the dialogue is a little bit hammy. It's a little bit on the nose in terms of how she talks about her love. She calls him old pal, like it really feels like a bit of a kind of nod to The Great Gatsby. It's like she's like, oh, Harry, old pal. And every now and again it's a little bit too sentimental. And then what happens is there's so much information about the other characters that you never meet in photos, in their kind of backstory that Nora's picking up and reading. But there's no emotional engagement with the other characters really. So that didn't quite work for us. And it didn't jar with the puzzles. It was just sort of less interesting than the puzzles, I guess, all of the characterization, the storytelling. And it started really well to the point where you're like, oh, this is going to be a really dark, amazing mystery. And there are sort of magical elements to it. And when that kicks in, you're like, oh, this is going to be really cool. And it feels a bit like it could be scary as well. But that stuff kind of fizzles out a little bit and it doesn't really commit as hard as you want it to in terms of that level of storytelling. That makes sense?
Yep, it sure does. So how about who is it for? I mean, you said at the beginning, it promises to be Lovecraftian. Do you think Lovecraft fans would be into it regardless, or is it for someone else?
I feel like it might disappoint a diehard Lovecraft fan, but if you're someone who kind of likes the sort of vibe of Lovecraft but isn't that bothered or doesn't know the stories that well, you might just like it for the sort of feel of it. It's a bit like, when you go to a theme park and there'll be like the Egyptian area or the Aztec area. It's a bit like that. It's like, this is the Lovecraft style game, but it doesn't really go far enough, I don't think, to really give you that sort of true depth of those stories. But it gives you a flavour of it, and it's a pleasant flavour of it. It feels familiar. But what I would say though is, while I was playing it, I was like, the one thing that I feel like this game could have done a bit better, and this sort of relates to who it would be for, is that it's a modern game and it promises to sort of offer you something a bit darker and a bit more interesting in terms of the story around the puzzles. But what it doesn't do is it doesn't really challenge those archetypal characters. So everyone's sort of, apart from one character that's referenced who you never meet, everyone's sort of like wealthy and white and Western. And there's a guide as well. There's a guide who's from a Pacific island as well. But there's still this kind of vibe of, I'm turning up to a foreign land and, oh, a primitive carving and, oh, a tribal picture. And it literally uses those words. And so there is a bit of that, which I found a bit disappointing, being that the game is so modern and they had an opportunity to make the character of Nora a bit more interesting, especially with what is then revealed about her as you go through the game.
Sounds like it needed to be just a little bit more self-aware. Either that, or it just needed a good shark.
Yeah, it might have needed a good shark to flop about on the beach. Raise the stakes a bit.
Cthulhu's pet shark. That's what it needed.
Yeah.
A bit of trouble. Yeah, I hear you. Just a bit more like, there's nothing wrong with going into that territory, but you need to be self-aware at this point, I think.
Yeah, and
does that lead us to, was there anything else you want to tell us about the game before we get to rating?
The other thing, I was just going to pick up on what you just said, because the other thing is, it could have gone more like the shark game and really played on the hamminess and made it, but it sort of takes itself quite seriously. So it's just it's a tonal choice, I guess.
Yeah. I think with those sorts of things, even if you're not going to go deeply into what post-colonialism is, all it takes is an extra beat of your sort of, superior white person walking out of the screen and just a sideways glance from everyone else who was there.
Yeah.
It's just like little knowing things that you can go, they had a completely different opinion of them than you did.
Yeah, and it's
there are
really
ways to do it that aren't too heavy-handed, but just knowing.
Yeah. Because I think they tried to do it with this one character. I can't remember the character's name again, right? Because these supporting characters, you meet them through photos, and one of them has a grave that you find and things like that. But you don't really meet them, and one of them is black. But you find that out because there's a letter that you pick up which says he didn't get accepted to university because he's black, and the one line of dialogue goes, "Oh, that's terrible." It's like, okay, but that's not really what, like, the kind of gaping sort of hole in that is that she's in a Pacific island with all this other kind of culture, and that is just sort of ignored. Do you know what I mean? It's like, it's trying to nod somewhere, but misses the thing that it's actually rooted in. But that's only it's a minor point, but it's one that stood out to me.
Yeah. All right, give me some numbers.
Oh, wait, did I recommend it?
Yeah, well, you said who you thought it was for.
No, no. Well, I'm going to recommend it though, because I don't think I said who I'd recommend it to.
Okay. I asked.
Yeah, no, I got sidetracked with storytelling and post-colonialism.
Yeah, go on.
No, I think that I would recommend this game to people who like puzzle games, especially if you've got an Xbox and Xbox Game Pass, because the puzzles are like genuinely quite fun. And so although I might say some things and rate it in a way that might make you think, well, maybe it's not a great game, I would say that it's really enjoyable. And as someone who likes puzzle games, it's not a very long game. I think it's about 4 hours long. It's split into like 6 chapters, so it's not very long. It was a really nice game to play with someone else as well, because the puzzles are of the type that, a bit like a Magic Eye picture, you can look at it for ages and not see the obvious thing, but if you play it with someone else, you can sort of collaboratively see the bigger picture, if that makes sense. So I would really recommend this game to people who do like puzzle games. And definitely if you're living with someone else, try and play it together like we did, because it was pretty fun doing that.
Thanks, Jam. As someone who lives alone and can't do Magic Eye pictures, I might give it a pass. So numbers. No, I will do. It is actually on my list to play. I will be playing it despite all that.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. I think you'll enjoy it.
I know what you're saying. I literally can't do Magic Eyes. I have too much astigmatism in my left eye. It doesn't work.
Oh, right. Yeah, I mean, it's
What's
not
the number out of
literally
10?
like a Magic Eye. So I'm
I
probably
know.
going to give it, it's a tough one. Probably like a 6.5.
All right.
Yeah, but that's what I mean. That's why I wanted to sort of caveat it by saying I do really recommend it though, because it was really fun. It's just the story sort of lets it down.
But I'm sort of with you on these recommendations, right? Because, like I say, I really enjoyed playing the game I played, but it was nowhere near being an 8 or above.
Oh, yeah.
You don't always want to play 10 out of 10 games. You need a bit of trash sometimes, or something different flavours.
Yeah, and the stakes don't feel too high, and when you get something right, you're like, yeah, or when you chomp the side of the boat, yeah, why not?
I've just realised not only is my beer ice cream pale ale, it's from Croatia, which is very coastal.
Most of it is coast, yeah.
I've doubled up on the appropriateness of it. Just wanted to point that out before we finished.
No, that's quite all right, Tim. Is it also a bit fishy?
No.
Oh.
No, thankfully not. No.
I mean, it can be fishy without having fish in it. Do you ever get a tomato and then it's a bit fishy? You ever had that?
Can't say I have.
Sometimes
really,
I eat a tomato and I'm like, why is it fishy? It's literally not come from anywhere near the sea. Anyway, we digress. And this is the kind of content that you're joining us for, My Turn Podcast listeners. So I think that brings us neatly to the end of this episode of My Turn Podcast. Tim, are you going to see anytime soon?
No. I have actually booked a little getaway for a few weeks' time, but it's York, which is quite far from the sea. But I am looking forward to putting into practice all the stuff I learned from playing Assassin's Creed Valhalla. Because I learned a lot about Vikings, and I'm going to go to the Jorvik, I'm just going to walk around and go, I knew that for the whole time.
Are you going to climb to the top of the cathedral and dive into a hay bale?
Yes, I am.
Good. That's all we needed to know. Oh, well, it's been lovely talking to you, Tim. And thank you, listeners, for joining us for this latest episode of My Turn Podcast. We'll be back with more reviews for you very, very soon. So that's goodbye from me, Jan.
And it's goodbye from Durna. Ooh, I better go.
Thanks very much. And you will hear us, in fact, next time. Goodbye.